founded in 2022. Since then, this was founded with the mission of building language technologies for under-resourced languages. Right? So that was the primary goal, that remains the primary goal of the company, and the idea is to have technology for everyone, and that everyone doesn't just include the speakers of the 22 scheduled languages, as they keep on emphasizing again and again. So by the estimates given in the census, it kind of says that almost 250 million people in India, and that's still sort of biased estimate, but at least those many people speak a language which is non-scheduled, which is not scheduled, which is not among the 22 languages. That's a large number of languages. So that was the primary motivation for trying to build technologies that works for everyone. Right? And then, of course, in order to do that, we are also trying to provide platforms and resources for the community members who could, work with the technology that's been developed, so that they don't have to fiddle with the computers and all of that. And we are trying to train the next generation of people who could really advance the work and advance the technology. So those are some of the things. So this 2-day workshop, all of you worked a lot on Matra Lab, which is a transcription, a lot of things. So essentially a documentation app, and we could also call it a data management app, where you could upload your audio recordings, you could transcribe, translate, you could do annotations, do glossing, all of not completely manually. So that's the idea, that we need to accelerate the pace at which we work. So we have those models embedded in the system which you could use and automate these tasks. Of course, when you're working on a new language, you may not have a model for that language, but we're trying to use models that are there for related languages, see how they work, and there are other things that you've already worked on, you're aware of. The second module that was supposed to be done in the workshop, but we couldn't because Matra Lab took more time than we expected, is the lexicon module, where you could again build the lexicon, build dictionaries, glossaries, those are multilingual, but the point there is also to automate some of the recurring tasks. For example, if you already have gloss data, want to use that for creating the lexicon to a certain extent. There's some of the existing tools do support that, but our idea is also to take it beyond that support. For example, you could automatically attach audio segments to your dictionaries using, if you have worked on this app. So everything on the same platform. For example, you went to the feed, you recorded the data, and then you came back with the data. You have uploaded on the app, and then you have segmented the audio, right? If you have segmented at the word level, you could actually generate the whole of the dictionary almost completely automatically. In the sense that the words will be taken from your glosses, the part of the speech categories, etc. The example sentences will come from there, the audio will come from there. Right? So that's how it's done. Now, what we'll see and what we're trying to launch today is the third app, which is Atekho, and it's the app which helps you in recording things. Right? So that's the first step when they were launching it at the end, the last one. So the idea behind Atekho is also not just to help you in recording, but to help the community members in recording their own languages, in documenting their own languages, cultures, their own oral traditions, and possibly also their environment and whatever would be of interest, right? So it's not built just for the researchers in that sense, it's also built for the communities. So unlike the other two apps that you saw, so for example, glossing is a feature that will be used by linguists, right? Almost exclusively. All of this is part of our internal project called Boli, where we try and collect data for different languages and different varieties of languages. and that data is what's generally called richly annotated data, which includes recordings, transcriptions, translations, morphological glossing. Generally, you don't get this richly annotated data within the broader field of language technology. So the idea is to have some kind of benchmark data that could be used for testing the systems, but if it's further extended, then that could also be used for building those technologies for the languages. So as you document language, as you build these resources, this could be automatically used for building the models. Right? So that's the whole idea. Okay, so now there are few things that I would like to talk about, and one is crowdsourcing, because the app Atekho is what could be called a crowdsourcing app as well. Right? So I'm sure most of you have heard what crowdsourcing is, but these are generally the core principles of traditionally what crowdsourcing has been till now. Right? So we provide, for example, you need to divide. Okay, so at a very primary level, crowdsourcing is getting your work, some kind of task that get done by the crowd. Right? Now, the name itself suggests a lot of things. So, and it requires that you do things in a certain way. Right? For example, you need to break down your task into doable micro tasks, smaller tasks that could be done by a large diverse group of people who are not trained in that task. And that's why they're crowd. Then there is, you invite a broad participation through public platforms, and there is some incentives involved for doing the work. The incentive could be monetary, generally it's monetary. Till now it has been so. And then finally you aggregate the results that's done by the crowd. So the popular use cases of crowdsourcing includes data annotation. For example, you have say 1,000 or 10,000 texts, and you want it to be marked with sentiment analysis, right? Or maybe marked with what kind of name will be there. With prototypical NLP tasks, as you could say. And also something like translation, and then there are other kinds of tasks, right? So creating new data, for example, through paraphrasing. These are the things that humans could do and do well, and this was done for collecting the data that could again build automated systems for this. Okay. Then more recently, there have been some efforts at building some kind of a crowdsourcing infrastructure that could help.
I taught in this institute for almost 4 decades, so it's like homecoming. But the members of home have changed drastically. I don't recognize anybody except a few faces. But really, it's a pleasure, honor, and also joy to be back in engineering you. The interesting aspect of today's launch, or today's function, I should say, the event, is that not every day an app of this kind is ever launched. And at least in India or in the world, across the world where I have been, I have not seen an app like this. The app which will be described later, the details of it. But let me tell you that language documentation itself is not an easy task. It's a very, very challenging task. Very few people realize that language documentation basically attempts to document every aspect of human spoken language. Now, language lives in our life, and our life lives in the language. You cannot segregate any aspect of your life from language. And that's why documentation does not restrict you to grammar and dictionary. You have to cast your net very wide to record, to document all that the community is engaged in everyday life, in their past, and what they think of the future. So language documentation is already a very challenging field, and it is coming up in the last 20 technological advances are now being made. So the documentation has become technologically easy, but linguistically it's never easy, because the analysis you have to do according to your expertise. And gone are the days when I started my field work, I used to carry a heavy tape recorder on my shoulder with a huge microphone concealed in my dupatta so that people are not offended that I am recording them. And those days are of course gone, and now you can do everything on your phone, which is so amazing. You see, why I say that language documentation is challenging, because it starts the challenge starts right at the elicitation. You sometimes feel that you are behind a closed door. There is no key. There is no key. There's a sliver of light under the door. You put your ears against the door and you hear the muffled voices. Those are the voices that you are concerned with. They are muffled. You knock at the door, and the door opens very slightly, and people close the door on you. And this may happen not once or twice, but a couple of times. Yet you should not be discouraged and disheartened. Ultimately, the door opens, people invite you in, and that's where your elicitation, friendship with the community begins. And I have experienced this moment time and again, and I also have been telling my students not to leave hope, when this happens. You will be amazed to know, because most of you are new to JAU, that even before the concept or the term endangered languages came into vogue in 1990s, JAU had already started working on lesser known languages, unwritten languages, languages that are on the margin. And it started in mid-70s. I joined JAU in 1976. So this had been growing and growing since then, and it's so exhilarating. Happiness really fills me to see that the team of JAU, including other members of the team, and let me read out the names, Dr. Karthi Narayanan, Dr. Ritesh Kumar, Dr. Venu, who have been my students, but Shyam, Yogesh, Siddharth, and Neerav have put their minds, and I'm sure body also together, and soul to get at what we are going to present today. So the legacy started in JAU, I must say, but it is nice to see that it is continuing, and I hope that it will continue with other students from other universities who have come to this premises and are sitting here. You have to look at language through the eyes of the community. Until you do that, you never get at the basicness, or I should say, you never get at the crux of the language spoken there. And that way, perhaps, this app that you are going to see today does reach the community on its own terms. It's very community empowered. So that particular aspect that I have been teaching all along, that you should look into the language through the eyes of the speakers, is satisfying. You see, you have to have the curiosity of a kid. Unless you have that curiosity, you would not be able to explore the language and its myriad ways of catching life and aspects of being life. So that is very much needed, because when you look at the language through all these aspects, you realize language and culture are also intertwined. You cannot separate the two. And there comes the time when you are culturally very far away from the community and you are unable to grasp notions. And that's where comes the lexicon. And your lexicon, I'm sure your app will correct a large number of lexicon. You have to take into account basic word list, a basic sentence list, what is known as basic. Let me tell you, there is nothing basic as such. But they are the words in the list which seem to be least resistant to change or least resistant to influence. However, basicness should be understood as a continuum and not as a dichotomous. So if you understand that, then you will expand your range of the basicness also. Because according to the culture, society, the way the community lives, there are sometimes the basic words also deviate from the typical Swedish basic words. Same as with the sentence list, basic sentence list that you have these three. You cannot do one without the other, you will have no decision to conceive. And these are very important aspects of linguistics that we train. Oral tradition, as Karthik mentioned, I'm so happy to see that that has also been taken into account, because the last 5-7 years I have been very much engrossed in documenting orality. And as you know, the unwritten languages, more than 800 right now in India, have survived through orality without any institutional support. What is the magic behind it? What is the mystery behind it? And they have been thriving despite the fact that no funding was ever given to them to make it the language of the school or language of the institute. So they have this secrets and mysteries of survival. And these survival clues are imbibed in the language. It's your job to unearth those. What are those keywords? So lexicon is a very powerful vocabulary. It's a very powerful tool that you can get to know the society through them. And that brings me to the area of semantic domains that you choose to elicit your data. Your semantic domains cannot be rigid. It has to vary from community to community, and geographically also, because the people who live by the seashores may have 5 different words for seaside. The fisherwoman and fishermen have different words for just the nature or the tides of the sea. Similarly, people who live in the forest area, they have, I realize, written one has 6 different words for forest opening itself. So the life that they live in always has some coding. There's nothing in the life which does not get coded in the language. And that's why language is very important. That's why language documentation is so important. If a language vanishes from this earth without documentation, a word is lost. It's the bigger tragedy of language death is the tragedy that we let what is inside the language to die. That's the bigger tragedy. So one has to save that. But let me tell you, those who have misconception that language documentation will save the languages, no. Language documentation only preserves the language. Language is saved only if you speak it, if you use it. If you extend the domains of use of language, then the language will be saved. Or speak it or sign it if you're a signer, but the language has to be saved through its use. Documentation can help what it was in their language or what is in their language. So in case the language has to be revived, that's one way of doing it. And Hebrew is a very good example. Though the modern Hebrew that is there certainly is not the old Hebrew, because when it was revived, it had Russian in it and it has other words in it of other European, East European languages. But the Hebrew is there because the community wanted to revive it, because there was huge amount of documentation. I also am a adjunct professor at Simon Fraser University, and I have in my class, I have students drawn from the First Nation speakers, that means the American Indian languages, and I realized that the third generation or the fourth generation of American Indians want to learn the language, which their earlier generation did not want to, and their earlier generation was made to forget it. But this current generation wants to learn it, and the helping hand comes from the documentation. Some of the languages are so well documented, their narrations are transcribed and translated, their grammars are written, the dictionaries are written, although it's little skewed, because they are written through the eyes of European linguists. But it's our task to look through those data all over again. So I'm really happy that this revolutionary app, in fact, in a way, which combines quite a few aspects of language documentation, is going to be launched by this team. It is their incessant hard work and devotion that has come to it. I wish I was younger and it was available when I was there, because I can see the advantages of it. I'm very happy that we all thought of naming it Atekho, because Atekho in Vietnamese means speech or language, and A is the body division marker, which means something to do with the mouth and its orifice. So something which you speak naturally comes out of your mouth. A is there which you can think of. It is a prefix, but if you don't understand what a prefix is, consider it as a prefix. So it's prefixed by a body division marker for mouth, and Tekho is speech. So I'm very happy that you thought of, and believe it, they never consulted me. For me, it was a surprise. They thought of this name, and I really hope that you carry the message of Goa Senior. And she used to say, "Pakar ke rakho, jaane mat do." Because this is why she was so keen that she was the last speaker. There was no one to talk to her. That's why she used to talk to birds, because she thought birds were her ancestors and they understood her. But because I've shared her anxiety, I've shared her pain. It's enormous. You just cannot describe it in words. How a last speaker feels like, especially the one who has seen the world, who has gone through, who knows the language is very ancient, but there's just nobody to speak to. So she was very happy that I was trying to document it, and I used to speak with her, but in my broken Goa, and she would go, and she used to feel nice if somebody is trying your face and making a hand. So what you are doing, this team is going to do, you never know. You might break some ground from unearthing those languages which have not been yet explored. Congratulations to all of you, and I'm very happy that you brought it to JU. This is the first launch here.
Yes, first official launch celebration.
So you are lucky, I'm sure. You all must feel fortunate about it. You are really lucky. And all the best, and best wishes, and have a nice time working on this app. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for those encouraging words and for always being with us and shedding the light ahead as we march on in this very dark world. So thank you very much. So before we move into the next part of the video, I'd like to recall that the next part of the demonstration, I'd like to recall that one particular video where Goa Senior asked us, hold together. So here it is. So before I go on to show the video, I believe it is Dr. Alok who is in the video. Yes. Dr. Alok. Yeah, Dr. Alok Das recorded this video. And in this video, Goa Senior, as ma'am says, expresses her anguish, her pain, and also her hope that while I may go, what I'm giving you, hold on to it. So that's the video that I'm going to show to you. Please, I hope you will move as the generation of linguistics. Yes, yes, yes. So this verse, Atekho, Bulo mein Atekho, Bulna nahi. That's exactly those phrases. That's guiding us to think about this app, this is that we are developing. So just a few information before I start with the demonstration.